gentlemen, let me take this early opportunity to welcome you all to the conversation table on the reforms to achieve gender equality in Kenya's parliament. I wish to thank the organizers of the event who have made it happen at this time when questions remain unanswered on why the two-thirds gender principle has not been realized. Allow me to reiterate that the fact that you being present in this forum is a confirmation of your role in achieving gender equality within and sometimes even beyond your various mandates. Ladies and gentlemen, gender equality implies a state of having equal access to resources and opportunities, as well as valuing different decision-making, economic participation, and aspirations regardless of the sex of the right holder. Women's political participation and leadership are hindered by a wide range of institutional or structural constraints underpinned by cultural and attitudinal barriers. While women comprise at least half the population in most societies, the said proportion is far from matching in positions of leadership and decision-making. Some of the reasons for the gender inequalities include, but not limited to, patriarchal culture, electoral violence, gender-neutral laws, social capital as in gender top-up mechanisms, economic exclusion, and democratic nominations and lack of co-sponsored legislation. Article 81B of the Constitution provides that the electoral system shall comply with the principle that not more than two-thirds of the members of elective public bodies shall be of the same gender. Article 27(8) requires the state to take legislative and other measures to implement the principle that not more than two-thirds of the members of elective or appointive bodies shall be of the same gender. Further, Article 27 of the Constitution therefore clearly sets out the non-discriminative provisions. Article 27(6) requires the state to take legislative and other measures, including affirmative action programs and policies designed to redress any disadvantage suffered by individuals or groups because of past discrimination. That is what we refer to as historical injustices. Article 100 of the Constitution further reinforces fair representation of persons with disabilities by requiring enactment of legislation to promote the representation of women, youth, ethnic and other minorities, and marginalized communities. Ladies and gentlemen, the ever-persistent challenge to all actors in the gender sector has been on how to actualize the said constitutional provisions in both the National Assembly and the Senate. As earlier reiterated, these reasons are patriarchal culture, electoral violence, adversarial male dominance, economic exclusion, as well as undemocratic nominations within the political parties. And I think that when members of the political parties who are represented here, you know that. Imbalances in ultimate decision-making and control of resources put men on a higher pedestal of enjoying the monopoly and great opportunities to mobilize financial resources. As depicted by, ladies and gentlemen, there have been several attempts in the past to ensure the two-thirds gender principle is implemented And as the previous speakers had said, we get the Mutula Bill, that was the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill of 2011. Then we had the Mutambo Bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill of 2014. Then we had the Duale 1 Bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2015. Then we had the Sijenyi Bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill of 2015. We had the Chepkonga Bill, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2016. Then we had the Duale 2, the Duale Second Bill, the Constitution of Kenya Bill 2018. And we had the Advocacy Initiatives, that is the Technical Working Group by the Attorney General of 2014. Then other efforts meant zoning. Zoning meant the constitutional and legal jurisdiction for zoning is that it is necessary measure contemplated in Article 27(6)(8), Article 81(b), and Article 100 of the Constitution. The implication for zoning was creation of 90 constituencies in the National Assembly, 16 counties, and electoral areas reserved for women in the Senate. Then we had the voluntary quotas. The proposal required political parties to include a requirement in their rules that a certain number of women be nominated during party primaries. Then we had the gender incentives. It was proposed here that Section 25(1) of the Political Parties Act in Parliament, the Political Parties Act 2011, be amended to provide for the financial incentives for political parties bringing women in Parliament. For instance, to hike the percentage share of state funding to political parties with increased women elected. The amendment was done, but it was a diversionary amendment. Then we had the twinning, where political party candidates would be required to contest as pairs or twins, like what happens with the presidential and gubernatorial candidates, and voters choose the preferred ticket. Ladies and gentlemen, we had the judicial interventions. Several court decisions have been made on the subject, but none of them have been executed. For instance, 1, the Supreme Court advisory of 2012 to decide on the progressive realization of the 2/3 gender principle. Second, the High Court petition ruling of 2018 requiring the AG to prepare a bill to implement the 2/3 gender principle. Number 3, the High Court petition ruling of 2016 challenging the 11th Parliament's failure to pass the bill to implement the 2/3 gender principle. Number 4, the High Court petition of 2017 seeking to compel political parties' lists of candidates to comply with the 2/3 gender principle. And 5, the High Court petition of 2018 challenging the 12th Parliament constitutionality for failing to comply with the law of composition of the 2/3 gender principle. Now, to realize this, we have some suggested strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, no single actor can support to have remedies to mitigate the stalemate on the 2/3 gender principle. Some of the proposals listed below are meant to jumpstart, if not propel, the more needed conversation around the issue at hand. The first mechanism is a dedicated single purpose. And the details of dedicated single purpose are, we get the unity of purpose for the gender equality committees, multi-portfolio committees, cross-party women caucuses, technical gender units, research services for evidence-based decision-making, among others. Mechanism number 2, support networks and collaboration. And the details here, what we can do through the support networks and collaboration is incorporate bodies outside Parliament. This is necessary, get necessary data and technical advice from experts and academia, the voice of civil society organizations, invoke institutional memory of women movements, analyze past achievements and current realities, capacity building and joint resource mobilization. Co-opting women parliamentarians in civil society organization board and executive committees. And then we have peer-to-peer exchanges within the region and other international jurisdictions with best practices. Mechanism number 3 is gender mainstreaming in parliamentary outputs. And for gender mainstreaming to be realized across both the parliamentary processes and outputs, we need legislations, we need debates, we need recommendations, and we need motions. Then number 4, we have to build relationships with the power influencers. I don't know whether we can refer to them as power brokers. The best word is power influencers. So here, both the executive and opposition, as well as relevant parliamentary committees, should be fully utilized through a bipartisan parliamentary approach for the gender agenda. To realize the 2/3 gender rule, we have the ruling party, we have the opposition party. We need all that inclusivity in political processes for this to be realized. Then another recommendation is voluntary quotas. We have to lobby for political parties to adopt their own voluntary quotas for women candidates on party lists. Then sociocultural issues, how to counter patriarchal African culture that claw back on women leadership. So here, as it had been said, we need to identify gender equality and women empowerment, men champions. We have to identify men champions, the men that further the women agenda. And we build the capacities of local leaders, grassroots women, girls, boys, men leaders to counter negative attitudes towards women in leadership and politics. And we have to encourage women competencies, capacities, and aspirations in areas like public speaking, leadership, emotional intelligence, decision-making, and probably just to go out of that, we already have a curriculum on political leadership for women aspirants, political aspirants. Number 7 is enforcement of gender equality laws. We have to enact and amend property laws that provide for equal inheritance and succession rights between men and women, and eliminate any form of discriminatory laws that govern political parties. And then we also have to look into the labor laws and treaties, initiate the labor laws and ratify treaties and protocols on areas like equal pay, ending GBV at work, gender-based violence at work, equal rights to access on controlled land and related property. And this one we can get through the International Labour Organization Resolution 189 and 190. The 9, resource mobilization and gender responsive budgeting. We have to mobilize resources for the benefit of all in the society. Is our budget gender responsive? Does it cater for the rights and the needs of men and women, for boys and girls on an equal platform. So gender-responsive policy takes into account both women's and men's interests and needs. The inclusivity nature of gender-responsive budget ensures that resources available takes care of all the unique needs of vulnerable subgroups. Evidence-based parliamentary output, we have to collect research and statistics that can guide gender parliamentary caucuses to formulate, debate, defend, and legislate or amend legislation from an informed and evidence-based perspective. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the two-thirds gender principle is firmly entrenched in the Constitution. Therefore, its implementation is a matter of compliance as opposed to choice. We have no choice in this. The justification was already debated and settled in the constitution-making process, 2010. Our concerted efforts to ensure gender equality should prove that the clamor for the new constitution and the people's aspiration for a new dispensation was not in vain. The envisaged new dispensation was expected to embody greater democracy, respect for human rights, inclusion and representation of all voices, especially of the historically marginalized and special interest groups. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, from where I sit, my clarion call to all of you is that together we should retrace our gender equality journey, pick the lessons, retool, and strategize to address the gender concerns and related emerging issues. Indeed, our individual and corporate evaluation of our contributions should point to our aggregate rating of where we are in terms of the following gender parameters: women and poverty, education and training, women and health, violence against women, women and armed conflict, gender-responsive budgeting, women and the economy, power, leadership and decision-making, institutional mechanisms, human rights of women, women and the media, gender and climate change, the environment, the girl child, boys and men engagement, among others. I thank you for your time and attention and look forward to fruitful discussions going forward. God bless you all.